All right. What's going on? We're back week 2. Mike and Rico, no review. We're doing Southern Miss. It's the second game of the year, and it was a pretty satisfying one. Noles get the win, 66-13. Probably would have been 90-3 if we would have kept the ones and twos in. It's looking like old school no football. It's looking like that run where we were pretty dominant in the 90s, and it's looking like when we resurrected in the early 2010s. It's starting to look that way. Mike, you were there. What is your overall, what'd you gather overall from that performance tonight?
Yeah, it was kind of similar to like the LSU game where there was a lot of sloppiness to start the game, but then once they got their legs, and just settled down, and it was just down to execution. The first drive was good; they went down there, scored, but then after that, it's a lot of drops. I mean, they had 7 drops in the first quarter alone.
Yeah.
And to be fair, some of them they're considered drops, but they were contested plays. But
Yeah.
you get 2 hands on the ball, you got to catch it because you're going to hit the ground. You got to find a way to just secure the ball, and just a lot of sloppiness as far as the drops. But outside of that, I thought the offense was run smooth, but then they just started executing, doing better, and I was real. My big takeaway, I was like, man, it's pretty clear they want to use Deuce Spann a lot in this offense. Like he is very involved in what they're doing. This year.
I'm here for it. I'm here
Yeah,
for it.
yeah. So I thought that was my takeaway. Like I knew the other guys were involved. They got a lot of guys, but I think once they settled in, it was just pure domination. They just took over 31-3 at halftime, and then kicked it in overdrive, and the starters were out after. Shoot, they scored on the first opening drive in the second half, then bam, pick six by Jaron Jones, and it was over. And they put in the backups, twos and threes, and it was like 10 minutes left in the third, and they were playing threes and fours. So, they when they dominate, they're on another level when they take over. When they take over, they can play with anybody because they hit a level that's just unbelievable. Keon Coleman did his thing as usual, and certainly there was a lot of options. I was very impressed what I saw out of Darian Williamson. I thought he's a really good, productive receiver. I thought Trey ran a little tentative at first, but then got it going, and then a lot of the backs got in there and really contributed. So they're just so deep, and so there's so many weapons. And then once again we kind of saw Mike wasn't happy with some stuff that he was seeing sloppiness in the first half. Held those guys together, and then once he had to talk with them, it's kind of bam, they kicked it in. But I think the big takeaway from this is just they've got to fix these slow starts and this lagness that they do at the beginning of the game. I think if they can do that, I think they're on point to where they want to be.
Yeah, I think the slow start is a little obnoxious. I don't want to call it concerning because you just have this confidence with this group, with the depth,
Yeah.
with the quality of the roster that they're gonna, hit their stride. But you would like to
Yeah.
see a little more attention to detail. We talked about that. We were wondering if they would have a little bit of a drop off in the attention to detail in this overall. Coming off a huge win, obviously that LSU game went
Yeah.
very competitive, and then we just kind of caught a rhythm and made some plays and kind of ran away with it. And it's one of the bigger wins we've had in a while. So coming off of that, it's your first game at home. It's a night game. You've got a lot of different
Yep.
distractions and stuff, and you expect to win the game. So it's one of those situations where the concentration can lag, and it did.
Yep.
We've got to
Yep.
fix that because that can get you in trouble if you're on the road somewhere in ACC play later on. You definitely can't have a slow start where you go down to Clemson, even if Clemson is struggling a little bit per their standard. You still got to
Yep.
get off to a fast start. When we look at the numbers overall, it was domination. 554 yards total offense to 258. We averaged 8 yards a pass, averaged 8 yards a rush. We didn't have any turnovers on the day. And we won time of possession 32-27. And that's with playing the threes and the fours. And then when we go to the box score, Jordan Travis's efficiency numbers took a hit because of the drops that you said. I think you counted 7. It felt like it was 17. It was just some of those plays, a couple of them in the end zone would have been phenomenal catches if they would have
Yep.
just completed and the DB played through the ball and did what DBs are taught to do. So, it's kind of a 50-50 situation, but some of those were just flat drops. Like Keon, touchdown in the end zone that he should have come
Yeah.
up with. He should come up with that because he's just an elite player that does that. But Jordan's numbers ended up being 15 to 29, 175, 2 scores. He played a half of football. You look at the ball carriers. We had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 ball carriers, all the way down to AJ Duffy. Probably got selfish on a couple of those zone reads. We'll get into the quarterback situation a little later. And then as far as the receiving distribution, I mean, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 different guys catch a football. So it's Mike Norvell is absolutely using all of his toys. He's got a lot of them, and he's using them. To your point, Deuce Spann touched the ball 2 times. He had 38 yards on 2 touches. His speed pops when he plants the foot and goes at a 6'2", 200-plus-pound body. It pops off the screen, and it was great to see. Defensively, played a ton of kids. I know for a fact, as a former walk-on, I know what walk-ons look like. That's not a disrespect. You can just tell some of the numbers are usually kind of odd. And I saw some odd numbers in the fourth quarter, and I said, those are some of the walk-on brethren, and they were getting in there. I don't know how many kids we played on defense. It had to be close to 30-something, maybe more. Ton of kids got in there, got some action. Some guys, I'm looking at Grant Fielder, Justin Cryer, Jaden Floyd, Malachi Menzer. All these guys are registered tackles. So if any of those walk-ons happen to read this or see this presentation, congratulations. That's awesome to see you guys out there.
Yep.
Domination on defense, ended up with 2 sacks, 4 tackles for loss. We did get a pick, and we got a pick 6, Mike. And that's what we talked about, Adam Fuller's defense. It creates turnovers and it creates points. Is there anybody in the breakdown just statistically that really stood out to you that you were looking forward to see this week and that came through?
Yeah, I mean, I thought Azare really graded out Willie well. I thought he was very good. I thought their corners were much more engaged in press man, where last game they were very, and maybe that's because of the competition, because you're facing some really good receivers, and that there was a lot more off man. But I think this one there was a lot more press man, and so I think he had a good day. I think Jaron had a really good day. I thought Patrick Payton did some really good job as far as the way he crashed in the pass rush. So I think those guys really stood out, and then I think Dennis Briggs once again had a really good day as far as controlling the interior. They never really got the run going at all. So I think I think their secondary, if you're looking at anything, I think their secondary had a nice, bounce back game compared to what I was seeing the soft covers in the first matchup. So I think there was a lot more aggressiveness and confidence, and obviously Jaron Jones had a pick 6, but there was several plays they could have picked like 2 or 3 balls off, and when the starters were in. So I think overall they did a good job for the most part as far as the pressure and stuff. And Jared Verse is containing double teams like every play, so that's really just opening up a lot of guys in the interior, and then also opening up Peyton where he's one-on-one. So I think overall very good team effort, but those are a few that stood out to me.
I got to give you a shout out because in the offseason we talk about who our guys. Of course, I got really excited over the portal additions of obviously Keon Coleman and Jimmy Bell. So when they did well last week, it was pretty cool. But I got to give you your flowers on a couple guys. Blake Nicholson led the team in tackles, had 5, including a solo tackle and a pass defended. And then also your dude, Vandravius Jacobs, you talked about him all camp long. You were talking about him. He got a score there. It was pretty cool to see. Those guys popped off. We even had Hakeem Williams. I thought Hakeem could have probably made a play on that ball in the end zone. He's coming along. It's great to see those guys. Destin Hill, Winston Wright, Vandravius Jacobs, Hakeem Williams, Darian Williamson, Deuce Spann, Kyle Morlock with a big 29-yard gain. So we're starting to get into the depth now. And it's great to get out of this game. Hopefully, Akeem Dent is okay. I'm not sure the extent of his injury. I guess we'll get more information in the next couple of days. But 2-0, played a ton of people. We go to Chestnut Hill next week, playing a Boston College team that's sitting at 1-1. They beat Holy Cross barely this week. Boston College is a place that we've gone and we've played well. I remember a game in 2007. They were ranked number 2 in the country, Matt Ryan and Bud Thacker and the boys went out there and got a victory against them. So we've had some good history in Chestnut Hill. We've got a better football team than them, so hopefully we go take care of business. What are you looking for as we look towards next week? I think it'd be fair to say we've established some stars. Obviously, Travis is one of obviously Benson, obviously Coleman at this point. Who are you looking for next week to step up?
Um, yeah, just I mean, as a team, I'm looking for just I mean, I love this guy, but I mean, it's like I've seen this the second straight week. It's like Jaheim Bell, dude. I mean, you're dropping too many easy balls. Like, I mean, there was play in the first quarter and first drive where he just dropped like it would have been a 40-yard gain, and it's like I want to see a better concentration level early in the game
Jaheim
on
or Johnny?
Jaheim Bell.
He dropped one as well.
Yeah, he dropped one really early in the first quarter. It
Okay.
would have been a 40-yard game, but no, for the most part, he catches most of the stuff. And it's just, not just him. I'm not going to pick him apart, but just early in the game, there needs to be a more of a desperation to set the tone, with their game. So I want to see a little more consistency in the offense. Overall, defensively, I like what I'm seeing. I can't really complain too much. I mean, they're getting what you want, but I mean, just want to see a more clean, start to the game. And I think that's really, if you go by both games, that's really the only thing they're lacking. I mean, it feels like once they get their legs in there, they're good. Once they settle in, it's just execution, just ball. I think they're good, and that's kind of what I'm looking for is just a more of a killer mindset in that first quarter to just put things away. And I think once they
Mhm.
hit that stage, then you'll see a different level of FSU once you get to that point. And I think tonight was important because, as I said, you need to expand that roster. I mean, this is what this game was for. Expand your roster, see some guys that you can count on, kind of expand it as the season goes on. That's what you want to do. That's kind of the plan. And I think they did that, but I think overall, just want to see more cleanness as far as the way they start games.
What's interesting is so I had to watch I've got to go back and do a film review of the first few drives because I was stuck with that North Carolina App State game, and I
Yep,
didn't have ACC Network Extra. That's not a channel I've got on my YouTube TV, so I missed it. So I probably missed the bell drop there. But I'm
yeah,
looking at the receiving numbers. We had 18 catches, 248 yards, 4 TDs, and Jaheim Bell and Johnny Wilson did not account for one single catch or one single yard.
yep,
That gives you an idea of the depth of what Florida State has at the skill position. Now, these guys were studs last week. They were stars. Johnny
yep,
had a couple drops last week, but he was huge on third down. I mean, he made a lot of plays, caught 9 balls for 100 something yards. And
yep,
Jaheim Bell was excellent, scored twice. They didn't even touch the ball, and we scored 66 points pretty much at ease. Probably could have had 90 if we would have kept the guys in. So, I mean,
yep.
Coach Mike Norvell has really amassed a really impressive roster. I mean, it's early. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We don't want to start calling it the best or this or that. But I'll tell you what, Florida State is as good as anybody in the country, hands down, and they have as much as anybody in the country does right now. We'll see how it plays out. But when it comes to personnel, it's pretty impressive. And then defensively, they just played a ton of kids, and they look like that front. I mean, there was the commentators were going back and forth calling that one of the best fronts, even the best front they've seen in the country, which I wouldn't go
Yep.
that far, but I would say it's one of the best because they're so multiple. They're three deep at every position, and they're just constantly in your backfield pressuring you. And it's going to be
Yeah,
really interesting to see if that continues.
yeah, and their linebackers put a lot of pressure on you because they bring them up and they
Yeah.
cover you
Yes.
laterally. You're running sideline stuff. You're running little slot screens. You're running little stuff of in between. They really attack with their linebackers, and so they trust their corners and safeties a lot. So that's really helping them. The three linebackers, 2 games. I mean, I think they've graded out pretty good. So especially Tatum Bethune, I thought he was phenomenal again. But I think overall defensively, I think they're pretty happy. Started
Mm-hmm.
forcing some turnovers in this game. It's kind of hard to force turnovers against Southern Miss because they run a lot of just quick passes. They don't really keep the ball too
Yeah.
much, and then they
Yep.
finally started wearing on and getting some sacks, and then got the pick six and kind of put it away. And then
Yeah.
Southern Miss kind of shut it down. Just they pretty much just like, well, we don't want to get anybody hurt, so you could tell. But the stuff they were calling was very basic counters, and then they would get the third down, and then they would try to maybe squeeze a pass here and there, but they weren't. They kind of saw the writing on the wall that hey, we're not winning these battles up front, and no need in getting our guys killed. So But I think overall, I think their front line, on both sides is as good as it gets. They're right there up with the best. I'm not saying they're going to be the best, but they're one of the best. The way they create pressure, and they don't have to blitz a lot with a lot of these guys. Like they
No.
rush four, and they can get pressure off their four. So that's a big
Yeah.
advantage that they have. A lot of teams. We saw that against LSU. There was a lot of pressure just with those four. And
Oh
then
yeah.
with the offensive line, they're creating really good gaps in A gaps for a lot of these running backs, and then
Yeah.
they're hitting explosive plays when they get Keon or John. I mean, there should have been hell. They should have had like 50 points at halftime. I mean, like if Johnny and Keon catch some of those balls, I mean, you're talking about like a 40, 50 point, half. So there is stuff to clean up. There is stuff
Yeah.
to perfect because there's a lot of plays that are still left on the field. And Johnny will get it figured out. We've seen it throughout his career. I always see Keon. I mean, just got to finish. I mean, nobody's perfect, so I think it's just really just cleaning up stuff from each game because like really you get to the fourth or fifth game, that's when you want to have all this stuff ironed out of what you're doing. So I think overall from the first two games, I mean, you got to be pretty pleased about just when they turn it on, they're as good as anybody out there.
I tell you what, I like going over these numbers because a lot of times you can watch something and then you don't really understand the mathematics of what you're watching. And the first thing we need to mention too, we're not going to sit here and tell you that Southern Miss is a barnstorming
Yeah.
powerhouse, but they bowled last year and they won their
Yep.
bowl game. They're traditionally a team that has very good athletes. They've got Southern athletes from Mississippi, guys who can fly around, guys that go to the league. So they are not just a pushover, sorry team that you schedule to go thump them. Okay, so with that being said, the Noles rushed for 306 yards,
Yep.
averaged 8 yards a carry. When
Yep.
you look at some of these numbers, some of these longs, okay, 42, 40, 34, 34, 19. Then you go to the passing game, you're looking at 34, 42, 29, 23, 20. These are all different players having these longs. So it's pretty safe to say this offense is damn explosive. And when we talk about the quarterback play, Travis played a half. Tate Rodemaker comes in there and coolly, calmly goes 3 for 3, 73 yards, and 2 scores. I mean, so we watched Tate last year. I mean, you're actually here in Houston for that one when
Yeah.
he had to take over because Jordan got hurt in the Louisville game. And that was a big win for us because we hadn't beat Louisville in a couple of years. And Tate actually went in there and played a
Yeah.
heck of a second half. I noticed 10 pounds of him. Body by Storms, great job, coach, because Tate looks a lot better. It gives you a bit of a security blanket when you've got a guy who can come in there, and I feel confident that we could win a football game, an important football game with Tate Rodemaker. I would pray that it wouldn't be like a Clemson or Florida or Miami, one of the bigger games, but I feel confident in Tate Rodemaker, and it was great to see Glenn. You talked a lot about Glenn. I didn't know Glenn could move like that. 2 carries, 32 yards. So, how do
Yeah.
you feel about the quarterback position? I guess we can end it with that. Do you see any movement in the quarterback position, and do you think we'll be able to see these quarterbacks play outside of Travis next week in Mass?
Yeah, that was interesting. The Tate part didn't surprise me because I felt very comfortable. That was their backup. That was the guy I'd heard the most about. As far as
Mhm.
backup, they feel really comfortable with him. I've watched Tate since he was in ninth grade when he played in Valdosta High. He can really sling it, but he's really got a lot more calmness when he comes in the game where things slow down. Where before he's come a long way since that I think that Jacksonville State game where he came in threw a
Oof,
pick six his first play. So
that was
he's
bad.
really he's much more calm now, and you can tell that the demeanor of Jordan has kind of rubbed off on him where he's letting things slow down. And then, but it was interesting to me that Brock was the second guy that came in for the backups, and I think that's kind of a
Called it.
it tells you how far he's come with in a short time. And I think personally, out of all the backups, I think he's probably the most talented. But I think they trust Tate the most. I think they're more comfortable with Tate. And I think he can do more things than Tate, but I think he doesn't have the calmness and feel for everything like Tate does. And but they're both good. It's a great quarterback room. Duffy's even good. Had some nice plays when he came in the game. So it's a good problem to have as far as what they're doing. And but I thought Tate was very good going in there. his drives were very short. It was like bam, bam, he was, touchdown, bam, he was out of there. So I think all the guys got good work, and I think overall that quarterback battle when they go into next year is going to be extremely intense with you know Brock, Duffy, or Tate, and but I think it's going to be a really heavy competition. It's going to be interesting. I was comfortable with all of them when I watched them.
Well, next week we're going to have Boston College. It's going to be in Chestnut Hill, as we mentioned before. Just giving a look over what they did today. They beat the Holy Cross Crusaders 31-28. That was a back and forth game. Looking at
Yeah.
their quarterback, he had 200 yards, 2 TDs today. They ran the ball decent, had a couple hundred yards on the ground, a couple hundred yards in the air, finished about 400 yards total offense. Again, it's Holy Cross. I think it's going to be a different level for them. Going to be very, very key for us to get out there and kind of establish our dominance early. And then I think that'll help us cruise next week. But the 1-1 Boston College Eagles, that's what we got. Mike, do you feel comfortable giving any type of prediction as to what's going to happen next week? Or are you just going to slap it on and see what happens?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know the quarterback really well. It's Thomas Castanales. He's a transfer from UCF. Very, kind of Jordan-like, kind of athletic guy, but also struggles passing to all kind of what we saw in 2020 with Jordan when he first started. So he is struggling to find his passing. So he'll kind of test them with his athletic ability. But I'd like FSU to probably win like 34-10. I think they're gonna comfortably. I think they'll be challenged early, but I think their talent's just so good. And then the Boston College team seems to be struggling if you look at the last 2 weeks as far as stopping people. But sometimes they've had tough games over there, so I could see them kind of challenge them a little bit early. But I think that it's kind of what we saw the last 2 weeks, that once it clicks in, it's kind of FSU takes over, and that's kind of what I think is going to happen.
Yeah, I'm going to one-up you. I'm going to go 45-17 Noles. I think it'll be competitive in the first quarter. I think we'll pull away. I don't think Boston College is going to have the bodies to thump with Florida State for 60 minutes. And I think this offense is just simply too explosive.
Yep.
So that's what we got. We've got the Boston College Eagles up next. It's going to be an early game. It's going to be a 12 o'clock noon Eastern. So it'll be 11 o'clock my time. So wake your butt up and get ready for some no football. Hopefully, have a good week of practice. Hopefully, we get some good news on Akeem Dent that it's not going to be a multi-week deal. And, hey, 2-0. We'll do a national preview later, but I feel pretty comfortable that after what Texas did in Tuscaloosa, which is the story of the week, the Noles are going to be sitting at number 3 in the polls.
Yep.
You heard it right, number 3.
Yep.
Mike Norvell's got the Noles at number 3. It's pretty awesome time. So hopefully we can keep this thing rolling. That's all we got for week 2. Mike and Rico breaking it down. Appreciate you guys, and we'll see you next week.